So I have a very stable job, and a very good one at that. But sometimes you need extra money, right? I am currently moving into a newer, bigger, and nicer apartment, so I've been putting down payments and using money to move. By no means am I broke, but it's nice to earn some extra cash. I thought of selling some clothes that I never wear. I've already donated a lot of older clothes to the Salvation Army, but for the clothes I never wore, and that are worth some good cash, I decided to sell over Craigslist and Let Go app. The Let Go app has never failed me. Craigslist? Well, I've never tried it before, but my friends have had some great experiences. I was trying to sell a very cute, short-sleeve black and white flower dress for $12. I put my number down so I could just talk to people directly, since I don't use my email too often. Side note, I posted a picture of me in the dress that my friend took, not showing my face, and with a blank white wall background behind me. I got a text a couple hours after I posted the dress. Here's how the conversation went. Hey, I saw your dress on sale. Is it still available? Yeah, it is. It's kind of hard to see the dress in the picture you've posted. Do you have any more pictures of you in the dress? Yeah. I have sent a picture of the dress on a hanger. One picture close up for detail, one to see the full dress. I asked for pictures with it on. I'll just look at the ad tomorrow. I never responded back. It was very alarming to have someone talk to me like that. Why would someone want to see the dress on? I mean, I guess I understand, but really? 2 days later, I got a weird phone call at 7:05 a.m. By the way, this was my off day, and I usually keep my ringer on because I'm always on call. To see that it wasn't working, and an unknown caller, I was pretty pissed, so I let it ring. Then they called again right after. I sighed and cleared my throat to answer. Hello? Yes, hello. Are you the one selling the dress? Yeah, I am. I'm calling for my wife. I have some questions. My name is Mark. And yours? I gave him my name, but he failed many times and almost made me think, dude, am I being prank called? It was pretty frustrating because I told him and spelt my name about 20 times. We got over introductions, and he gets into the whole questioning. Is this a thick dress? Yeah. Can this be worn as a fancy dinner dress? It can be. You can dress it casual or dressed up. Okay. How tall are you? I'm 5'3". Okay. So my wife's pretty short and around your height. Do you wear a bra with that dress? She can wear it with or without? Mark continues to push if I've ever worn a bra with the dress, so I started to get short with my answers. Where are you right now? I feel like I've woken you up. Yeah, I'm at my friend's currently. A girlfriend's? Friends. I'm just not home, okay? But did you sleep in the same bed as her? Can we move on? I'm not home right now. His phone cut out, and then he calls me back a minute later. Sorry, my phone died. So anyways, what size cup are you? Excuse me? I don't feel comfortable answering this. B or C? I'm not answering this. You look big-breasted, very gifted. My wife has an ass. Do you? I really don't want to answer this. You're making me feel uncomfortable. I'm gonna have to hang up. But does that dress right up your back? When you walk, does it show your ass? I immediately hung up. He decided to call me over and over, and it's not like I can block his number, because his number was unknown. By the 20th call, I answered to tell him off. Listen, I don't feel... No, you listen to me. You know, I know where you live, and I want that dress. I hung up and cried. I didn't know what to do. I still don't know what to do. I would understand if a guy wants a dress for his own pleasure, sexual or not, but at least tell me and not act like his wife needs one. Or does he even have a wife? Why couldn't she call me herself? I have so many questions. I'm legit scared and this number won't stop calling me. I even got an email that's not related to this about a guy named Mr. Anonymous asking for smelly old flats. Is this normal for Craigslist? To the man who keeps calling me about my dress, please, let's never meet. This happened about a year ago now. I'm a college student and was basically forced to move out on my own, which I didn't mind. But that meant finding a new roommate, which can be a daunting and scary experience. I've had a few weird encounters, but I think this one takes the cake. I posted on Craigslist looking for a bedroom in a shared house or apartment for $300 or less, and on my ad I mentioned, please no phone calls, only text or email, because I find being on the phone with someone I haven't had a chance to size up a really uncomfortable situation. I'm just awkward, I guess. Anyway, I got a call from a dude who clearly didn't read the no calls part, which I mentioned because this type of phone call was exactly the reason I don't talk to strangers on the phone. At first he was just pleasant and normal, told me he had a room available and relevant information like that. We started to talk about when and where we'd meet up, and he started going on tangents about random stuff. I'm a combination of too interested in deep conversation and too awkward to end the call when it started to get weird. So this call went on for 2 hours, and we talked about the meaning of life and all kinds of weird shit. Honestly, this should have been a red flag, and I shouldn't have met him, and of course I should have grown a pair and told him I needed to leave. So he wanted me to meet him at his place and show me the room. I've since learned that you should really insist on meeting in public first. I got to his neighborhood, and it was a rundown on a level that made the ghetto I grew up in look nice. Saggy front porches, hot cracked concrete, sad people with old beat up Lincolns. You get the picture. His house blended right in. The yard was seriously overgrown, and the front door didn't work. So I went around the back, and just looking at the guy standing in the doorway and seeing the kitchen behind him was enough to make me realize I really just wanted to leave. No way in hell. The guy in the doorway was a man with a sort of clown-style afro. He was leaning on a cane on his right side. His eyes looked crazy, and the house smelled musty from 10 feet away. Again, I'm a coward, so instead of trusting my gut, I go inside and I'm politely thinking, it's okay, it'll be over in 20 minutes and I can get the fuck out of here. I really don't know what made me think this man who had a 2-hour conversation with me on the phone about life and philosophy would let me get away that easily. He took me up a flight of creaky steps into a small bedroom with no door and a mattress on the floor. I thought no way in hell would I live here with a 40-something man. I was 19 and female, and no door on my bedroom either. But none of that really mattered, because my mind was made up before I even saw the room. I wouldn't even have lived there for free, let alone for $200 a month. Things started to get really weird. He tried to hold me hostage with conversation again. I think he was lonely. He talked about how some of his family were millionaires. He might have been delusional. The whole story seemed made up. Then he told me about an 18-year-old girl that also checked out the room and tried to fuck him. Obviously, that was super uncomfortable. Eventually, I was able to find a break in conversation and plucked up the courage to make an excuse to leave. I was never so happy to leave a place in my life. I don't know that he was necessarily a rapist or anything, but he really gave me the fucking creeps. This is one of the more creepy encounters I've had so far. At the time, I was a few months into undergrad in Austin, Texas, and had just become comfortable enough with myself to come out of the closet. At the time, there were no dating apps available, so to find dates I used Craigslist, which in the end turned out to be a big mistake. I started chatting with a guy off Craigslist. His name was Craig, ironically, and we hit it off and decided to set a time and place for a date to meet in person. His ad said he was 27, and I was 18 at the time. At first, he was very insistent on meeting at his place, which I later found out was just a trailer, and it kinda made me suspicious, but in his pictures he was very good looking, had a nice smile, etc. So I decided to let it go. Eventually we agreed to get coffee before going to his place. So the day arrived and I went to get coffee, and I was pretty excited. I had showed my roommate pictures of Craig and talked about how I was looking forward to meeting him. I showed up at the coffee shop and he was already there. He actually did look like his pictures, so that was a good start. We got coffee and ended up chatting for several hours before he asked me whether I wanted to go back to his place. Luckily, my roommate called to check up on me, and it also happened that he was stranded because his car had broken down. So I told Craig that I would take my friend back home before heading over to his place. Well, by the time I picked up my friend, Craig was no longer answering his phone or texts. When he finally answered, he accused me of making up some excuse so I wouldn't have to go back to his place with him, and was basically very angry despite our great conversation earlier. I was a bit bummed, but basically didn't think of him again until years later when my old roommate sent me a link for a news article about Craig. Apparently, he had been running a sex trafficking ring using underage boys that he would lure through his good looks and promises. I can only imagine what would have happened to me if I had gone back to his trailer with him that day. I know this isn't as creepy as other stories, but it definitely gave me the chills when I read the article. I don't remember exactly which link my roommate sent me, but there are plenty of other articles about him online, so I included one in the description below. I'm a 27-year-old female, and this happened when I was 24. I live in Los Angeles and have my entire life. I was feeling lonely and decided to go on Craigslist to try to find someone to hang out with. Not necessarily a date, but just someone to chill with. If it led somewhere, then so be it. That was my thinking. I emailed a few guys, one of which stood out to me. He sent some pictures and I was fine with how he looked, and he seemed nice enough. We agreed to meet and go have some coffee. It took him a little longer than he said it would be to get there, and once he did arrive, I instantly regretted what I was doing. But being overly polite and feeling awkward, I went along. I got in his car, and instead of heading to Starbucks as planned, he drove to a CVS. I was like, "What are we doing here?" To which he said he had to return some stuff so that he would have some money. I was super uncomfortable already and just wanted to get out of there, but again, my shyness got the better of me, and I just waited it out. Once he returned whatever he was returning, he then said he'd stop by his apartment. We pulled into his underground garage, and he said he'd be right back. You don't know how badly I wished I had run right then while he was gone, but I didn't. He got back in the car, and I could tell right away that he was high on an upper, probably meth. Having been to rehab before myself, it was blatantly obvious. I told him I had gotten an emergency phone call while he was upstairs, and that I was sorry but I had to be taken back. I told him he could just drop me off at the nearest train station. I lived in a city like an hour away, so I wasn't about to have him drive me all the way back home. When we got on the freeway, that was the fastest route to the train stop, but we ended up passing the exit. I had told him a few miles ahead which one it was, but he didn't say anything. he just seemed to ignore me. I thought maybe he just hadn't heard me. "Hey, that was the exit actually, you passed it," I said. Instead of pulling over to the right lanes, he kept pulling farther and farther away over to the left, until we were all the way in the far left-hand lane. I asked him what he was doing, trying to keep my cool. I can't honestly remember his exact words, but it was something along the lines of, "I'm not dropping you off. We're having sex. Why do you think I did this?" I looked at him with my jaw to the ground and asked him, "So you're refusing to drop me off?" He said yes and sped up the car. The first thing I thought of was obviously calling the police, so I pulled my cell phone out. He turned towards me and hit me in the face hard, and I dropped my phone because I was so shocked. The phone had fallen somewhere below his seat, somewhere I couldn't get to. I was panicking. As we continued to drive, I tried desperately to think of what I should do. We came up on another interstate, the 5. For some reason, seeing the freeways intersect and seeing that we were about to get on yet another freeway was hugely ominous to me, and I decided I could not let him get on the next freeway. I couldn't jump out of the car. I'd die instantly, so I did the only other thing I can think of. I took a breath and grabbed the steering wheel, turning it as hard as I could to the right. He was so shocked he didn't even try to grab it back from me as we crashed into one, then another car, and finally into the side barrier. He turned towards me again and started hitting me while screaming, "You bitch, you fucking bitch, you fucked everything up." I put my legs up to block the blows from his fists, and it worked. I ended up falling backwards out of the car after managing to put my hand back and open the door. I ran to one of the cars we had crashed into that had pulled over behind us. The guy in the car had his phone out, most likely calling the cops. I knocked on his window, screaming that this psycho tried to kidnap me, and he rolled it up all the way. It had been down like a third of the way when I walked up and knocked on it. I honestly couldn't believe it. When I looked back, Psycho was coming towards me, so I said fuck this. Clearly no one's going to help, and ran towards the fence. I'm already not in amazing shape, and was even weaker because of what had just happened, so I literally had to lean on the fence until it bent over for me to fall over it. Climbing up a chain link fence was not an option in that moment. Luckily, instead of following me, he ran the other direction. He just left his car on the side of the freeway. Once I was over the fence, I realized that I was on some horse trails that I was familiar with. So I just walked through the miles of trails until I got into the nearest city, which was Burbank, and called the cops from the bowling alley. I never found out what happened to the psycho. The cops never told me after I made the report, but I hope he got in some kind of trouble for, trying to kidnap me. This happened last year around this season, while I was broke and struggling to make ends meet. I had just moved out and didn't want to resort to going back to my parents. Anyways, I was so desperate I was looking on Craigslist for caregiver housekeeping type of gigs, just to make quick cash while I looked for a full-time position. After responding to several, I got a bite back from a man who had advertised as a disabled man who needed help with his morning and evening routines since he had a bad back. As a past caregiver, I thought nothing of his request since I knew it could be difficult for some. After chatting on the phone and coming to the conclusion that he was nice and normal, I proceeded to head over to his townhouse late one night to help him with his nighttime routine. He lived a bit out of the way from me, but I was desperate and didn't mind. He even said I could spend the night since he'd need me in the morning anyway. Once I got there, he was a decent-looking man in his late 30s or early 40s with a cane. He paid me $200 up front for the expected nighttime and morning routine the next day. He explained he was ex-military and had back surgery recently. Things started to get weird once he offered me some wine and commented on how cute he thought I was. I should have seen that as a big red flag, but again, I was super poor, but I didn't want to cheat him, so I gave him the benefit of the doubt. He then led me to his bedroom, where he got undressed for his evening shower. I was absolutely horrified since I saw that he already had a giant erection and wanted me to lather him up. He asked if I wanted to take my clothes off, and I declined. He responded respectfully. However, he did touch my butt when I bent over to pick something up for him. I should have ran out right then, but I was waiting for the right moment. After quickly giving him the most unsexy shower, the most platonic way I could, he got out and said he was heading to bed, but didn't want to wear any clothes. The guest room I was staying in was right next to his, and though I was tired, I was still pretty on edge. My gut instinct was telling me to get the hell out of there. The issue was that we were on a 3-story townhouse, and we were on the top floor, and he had installed baby gates on each floor so his cats wouldn't run away. Also, he had turned off all the lights on the lower floors, so it was pitch black. In order for me to get out, I'd have to pass his room. I quietly arranged my stuff in my purse while I heard his TV blaring, and to my horror, I saw him walk swiftly to his bathroom without his cane. I realized he was not disabled as he had told me, since he had previously put on an act as if he couldn't walk without it. He also still had his heart on and was holding a giant bottle of lotion with him. As quickly and quietly as I could, I fled and ran out of his room while he was in the bathroom and jumped like an Olympic sprinter over the cat gates down the dark stairs. As I threw the front door open to run to my car, I heard his house alarm go off. I got into my car as fast as lightning, heart beating like crazy. I immediately got phone calls from his number, and every car that trailed me had terrified me until I got out of there. Finally, after a 2-hour drive, I was back to my place and grateful I was out of there. Who knows what could have happened if I had stayed overnight, but really, I'm so glad I didn't find out.